Ranger Melissa stands in front of a white SUV talking to the camera, then gets in the car and drives away.
Hey everybody, it's Ranger Melissa. Happy Glacier Science Day. I am so excited today. We are going over to the east side of the park and we are going to meet up with Brent Rowley, a park archaeologist who's going to show us some amazing discoveries that are popping out of a riverbank. I'm not going to tell you any more than that. You have to stay tuned and follow us to the east side. So come in with me and let's go. We're going to have a great time. Don't want to miss this one. Come on. Hey, you made it! Welcome, we're on the east side and I'm really excited. I'm standing next to a river on a riverbank that's eroding due to natural processes. And because of this erosion, there are some amazing archaeological finds that are popping out. And we're gonna speak with Brent Rowley, one of the park archaeologists, who's gonna tell us what they're finding and why it's significant. So I'm excited to talk to him today. Right above me, there's kind of a grassy meadow area. That's gonna be important when we hear from Brent in a minute, so remember that. All right, here comes Brent now. He's coming down the trail.
Hey, Melissa.
A man wearing a ball cap and glasses and carrying a shovel walks down over the riverbank to the gravel bar where Melissa stands.
Brent, I am so excited to learn about what you guys are discovering. I have no idea what's going on here, so tell me what I'm looking at.
Well, the first tip off that there's something here is this rather large bone right here.
My gosh, are you guys seeing this? Look at this. It is a bone, it's huge.
Camera pans down to a large white bone embedded in the soil of the cut bank.
What's it from?
And so this is a bison bone, it's a long bone, so it was probably like a femur or a humerus.
Okay, wow, that's awesome.
This is a vertebrae.
Close-up of a piece of vertebra embedded in the soil of the riverbank.
Oh my gosh.
And right here you have a piece of a rib bone. And this is a pretty big rib bone, so definitely indicating a large mammal like a bison.
Okay.
Brent is now standing alone by the riverbank talking to the camera.
So in the 1990s, an archaeological survey in this area of the park identified bones eroding out of this bank. The archaeologists were suspicious that it might be part of a Native American bison kill site once they saw the size of the bones. So they sent the bones off to a lab for testing, and the bones dated to 960 years before present, 1,060 years before present, and 1,400 years before present. But the archaeologists then came back and investigated this bank, and they identified flakes of quartzite, which means that people were here making stone tools in the same area that the bone is eroding out.
Illustration of an indigenous man with long braids and feathers in his hair sitting on the ground using a small rock to split flakes from a larger rock. Caption reads, illustration by Eric S. Carlson from 600 Generations, Riverbend Publishing, Montana.
Additionally, they identified cut marks on some of the bones when they took them back to do laboratory analysis of them. And by cut marks, I mean that's where people were butchering the bone.
Illustration of two indigenous people working to butcher a bison using stone tools. Caption reads, illustration by Eric S. Carlson from Arrowhead, Spears, and Buffalo Jumps, Mountain Press Publishing, Montana.
With that information in mind, they also took a look at the landforms around this terrace that's eroding out. And it is very similar to the landforms in other areas of the park where they've identified bison drives. So where indigenous people were driving bison down usually alluvial fans or along lake shores into some sort of trap.
Illustration of indigenous people chasing a herd of bison across the land, waving cloths and using spears. Caption reads, illustration by Eric S. Carlson from Arrowheads, Spears, and Buffalo Jumps, Mountain Press Publishing, Montana.
They would build drive lines along the alluvial fan which would be kind of like fence lines. And this works just like a bison jump is what people were more familiar with. But this is the sort of type of bison kill that would happen in a mountain environment.
Illustration shows an overhead view of a group of people chasing a bison herd in a funnel-like formation over the side of a cliff. Caption reads, illustration by Eric S. Carlson from Arrowhead, Spears, and Buffalo Jumps, Mountain Press Publishing, Montana. Illustration shows close-up of bison falling off a cliff. Caption reads, illustration by Eric S. Carlson from Arrowhead, Spears, and Buffalo Jumps, Mountain Press Publishing, Montana.
And so in this case, they were probably driven down an alluvial fan into a trap of some sort, which would be made of like a fence with bison hide on it. And that's important to note that it probably had bison hide on it, because bison biologically are herd animals, and so they like and feel most comfortable when they're next to other bison. So once people would drive them into the trap, after sort of stampeding them down the drive line, the bison would actually feel comfortable because they're surrounded by all these bison hides, and their eyesight is bad enough that they would think that, oh, I'm next back in the herd, I can calm down. And then people would jump over the fence with their darts or their spears or their bows and arrows and just shoot the bison like fish in a barrel.
Simple animation showing a group of bison being driven into a trap area by a group of people who then kill the bison.
And so right here we have a piece of it's like the pelvic joint area. And so that's what this giant bone is here.
Oh my gosh, can I see that? Let me see. Wow. Folks, this is really incredible stuff. We're literally looking at these bones from so long ago.
Close-up of a large off-white knobby bone with a porous texture eroding out of the soil of the riverbank. Melissa walks along the gravel bar next to the river, looking down as she walks.
Let's see, Brent, you were saying that some of the bones are washing out of the bank. Wait, what is this?
Oh.
Right there.
Oh, that looks like a piece of a rib bone.
Oh my gosh.
That has eroded out.
Close-up of a rib-shaped white bone lying amongst muddy rocks on the ground.
Yeah, and so that's what we're here to do today, is to document the bone that is eroding out, because once the bone erodes out of the context of being in the soil matrix, it doesn't really do us much good from a research perspective. So all that tells me is that at some point a large mammal was here, but the bones actually in place in the wall actually tell me about, like, I can carbon date them, or I can do isotope analysis on them to see what they were eating.
Oh, wow. Okay, so really having the context of where everything is placed allows you to put the picture together of what happened in the past.
Yes, definitely.
But anything out of place does not give you a full picture.
Right.
Melissa and Brent stand next to a section of the cut bank with bright orange flags sticking out of it.
Okay, so now I see there's this orange flagging that you all have put out, and I don't see any bones. I'm kind of wondering what it's indicating.
There's several really distinct lenses of burnt material. So that's basically, yeah, it's like a charcoal stain.
Close-up of lens-shaped charcoal stain layers in soil.
One of the really markers of a bison site, though, is that people were often digging boiling pits. So, and they would dig a pit, line it with bison hide, which is waterproof, and then they would fill it with water and crushed up bits of bison meat that were not like large pieces, but the small pieces. And then they would build a fire next to it and take hot rocks out of the fire and put it in the pit, and it would boil it.
Illustration of two indigenous women and a child preparing bison meat using a boiling pit as Brent described, with teepees and bison carcass in background. Caption reads, illustration by Eric S. Carlson from 600 Generations, Riverbend Publishing, Montana.
That would actually cook all the marrow out of the crushed up bones, and it would also cook all the tiny bits of meat that they wouldn't cook in like a roasting pit or something like that. Oftentimes when charcoal is deposited in a cultural context, it will be kind of larger in the middle and go out towards the side.
Close-up of charcoal stain illustrating lens-like shape and pieces of burnt material embedded within.
So if you took your modern campfire and, you know, had a flood happen on top of it to deposit soil, it would deposit in a kind of a lens shape.
This is so cool. Thank you for showing us this. I really appreciate it. And I was wondering, you know, now you're here today, and I know there's a lot of work to do, and I'm wondering, what are the next steps? So you're going to do some carbon dating on some of these things. What do you have to do today to get there?
So what we're going to do is set up a grid along this bank so that we can tell where each sample comes from.
Several clips showing Brent and colleagues surveying a section of the riverbank, measuring from the top of the bank down to an artifact using a tape measure, and creating a map in a notebook of where the artifact lies in the context of the bank.
because that's almost as important as getting like the carbon sample itself, because you're giving it context to where it came from in the bank so that you can compare it to other areas of the bank to see if there were different occupations here by people.
Hand-drawn diagram representing location of artifacts in soil layers of cut bank, where artifacts are marked with small triangles at the depth at which they occur. Brent stands next to a section of the riverbank where measuring tape is stretched across the ground and a roll of aluminum foil lies close to an orange flag stuck in the bank. He holds a trowel.
We're gonna collect this piece of pelvis bone because it's starting to come out of the wall, and I think very likely by next spring it'll probably erode out naturally, so we'd lose all the datable material for this bone. So we're gonna take this out, and we're putting it on aluminum foil because if we put it in plastic bags, plastic is made of carbon and it can actually throw off the carbon dates.
Using a trowel, Brent gently loosens the bone from the soil and grabs it with a piece of foil. Brent holds the bone out in front of Melissa.
Whoa. Okay, Brent. Wow. And you just pulled that out. What do you think this is, and is this what you're thinking, still bison?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, look at how big that is.
And what do you do now? You have the aluminum, so you're not touching it, so you're not getting your carbon on your fingers on it.
Right. And so now we'll wrap this up and package it and label it so that we don't lose track of what it is.
Brent and colleague squatting down to wrap the bone carefully in foil.
We'll take it back and send it off to a lab for dating.
Brent's colleague walks through the meadow with a large pack full of equipment on her back.
Wow, that is so great, you guys. This is how it all happens right here. So you had funding to do this, right? Where was that funding from? And
that funding came from the Glacier National Park Conservancy for us to do bank surveys of archaeological sites eroding out of banks on the east side of the park.
Okay. Okay, and you're hoping to get more funding in the future to analyze some of the...
Yes, hopefully, because it definitely costs money to send these samples off to a lab, because we can't do that in-house. We have to actually send it off to a university lab to get it actually tested.
Precise type of measuring. Yeah. Okay. So you are going to keep going down this bank, and you're going to keep on taking the pieces that you feel might be about to fall out into the river. I remember this piece, this bone that I almost stepped on before.
Close-up of white rib bone lying among muddy rocks on the ground.
I have seen things in my life where, I've seen things out in the wilderness or things when I'm hiking, and I'm never sure, should I take this and give it to somebody, or should I just leave it here? I'm never really sure what to do. So can you tell me, what if I had found this? What would I do?
Well, so as we've looked at today, archaeological objects are most important when left in their context in which they're found. So it's always better to leave things where they were found. And so I always like to say, if it's really old and it's not yours, don't take it.
Okay.
It's kind of like a leave no trace sort of thing.
Gotcha. Leave no trace for archaeology. If it's really old and it's not yours, don't take it. Brent, I have learned so much today. I have just been, like I said, this has been a dream of mine, and you have fulfilled it. So thank you so much. I love what we saw today and what you guys do and all the things you showed us. So thank you so much for joining us for Glacier Science Day. I'm sure everybody out there loved it too. And everybody remember, if it's old and not yours,
don't take it.
Don't take it. Yes. So thanks again, everybody. Join us next time in early October. We're going to take a little break, but early October we'll be back with Tegan Tomlin, and we'll be looking at some amazing geology here in Glacier National Park. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you next time. Happy Glacier Science Day.
Bye.